All right, man. What is going
Hey,
on, my man?
sorry I'm late.
No. You're good. You're good. Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. You can hear me and see me and everything?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Sweet. Oh, man. I appreciate, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate you
Yeah,
jumping on and so
thanks for
sick,
having
man.
me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep,
Okay,
yep.
cool.
Very good. Yeah, I was just kind of mentioning too, it was the thing where like all of a sudden I saw that you guys were like real local to me the other day and I'm like, holy fuck, how did I miss that you guys were like coming through so close too? So
Our
especially
tour our tour poster's confusing because we have a tour poster for all the dates we're doing with Knocked Loose.
uh-huh.
They're doing a lot of big festivals that we're not on. So when they're playing a big festival, we tended to do our off dates,
Oh,
which
okay.
is another tour flyer that we have up on our page right now. We have a tour flyer with our off dates and a tour flyer with their dates. So this might have just got mixed up in there somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and it's one of those things too, like within the last year, where it's like you kind of fell out of looking for show flyers and shit
Yeah,
just because like stuff wasn't happening. So,
for sure.
it was kind of like a learning lesson where it's like, okay, I need to start like paying attention more to shit, and seeing where
Yeah,
different things are coming through. So, yeah,
for sure.
awesome. I mean, I appreciate, you being on here today. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to
not at
dig
all.
into some of this stuff here. And, yeah, I kind of had a little introduction, as far as within the interview here, and then the remainder of the interview is about you and your craft. And I have one finale that I wrote just for this episode. So
Cool.
if
Sounds
everything's
cool.
good, man, we'll get started.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So let me ask. My wife and I do some traveling. If we were coming through, is it the Sonoran Desert?
Sonoran Desert, yeah.
Am I saying? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I want to make sure I was pronouncing that right. What would be a local eatery or a local food spot that we would have to stop by before
Mm,
before coming back home? Something that's a favorite to you.
well, in Tucson, we're famous for Sonoran hot dogs, which is just like a type of junk food, very decadent junk food. It's a hot dog wrapped in bacon on like I think it's called the bunelo. It's like a special bun with jalapeno relish and mayonnaise and mustard. So it's like a lot of the late night eateries. Like if you were going to go to a show or go out to the bar or something and you wanted to get something to eat afterwards, local people in Arizona will probably go get Mexican food because that's the stuff that's open late, like 24 hours. Like carne asada fries, it's just bad stuff. But it's
Whoa.
good. It's good, but it's bad. So it's for
It's
so
Yeah, I mean it's perfect for like post show. It sounds like
yeah,
that
yeah.
definitely that sounds
Getting
like
getting
the
burritos
spot.
after a show in Arizona, that's the tradition. So if you're hungry after the show, you get burritos.
Sick. I love that. Nice. That's perfect. I couldn't have asked for any more. Shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, my band just played last night too, and that was kind of the conversation of like, man, where do we go right now? Like what
yeah,
might be open after all of this shit too. So
yeah.
very cool. I mean that's always fun. What so as far as digging into, like your musical interests and different things is, kind of going back to growing up, what were songs or bands or maybe even albums that resonated with you early on, maybe even starting your interest in music?
My dad was really interested in music when I was growing up, so he listened to like a lot of classic rock. That's just what he was growing up in the 70s, early 80s. He was still a young man and listening to like one of his favorite bands is the Cars. I like the Cars a lot. So a lot of his favorite bands
Oh
became my
yeah.
favorite bands. To this day, like Eagles is one of my favorite bands. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I love Eagles and like I like a lot of like soft rock from that time. Uh, like
Okay.
Firefall, America, stuff like that. I listened to a lot of that.
Ooh.
That was some of the music that I first heard because that's what my dad was listening to at the time. But growing up too, I was like becoming aware in like the late 80s, early 90s is when I started like hearing music on the radio. And a lot of the pop music from that time was like weird club music.
Mm-hmm.
Like Madonna was still popular at that time, making that really danceable club music, like La Bouche, like weird pop music like that. And I grew up
Yeah.
listening. I still enjoy that kind of pop music. I have a
Uh,
big soft spot for pop music. I listen to a lot of pop, like R&B, early 90s, like Montel Jordan was big. There was Tupac was huge. Um, Babyface, like all that kinds of weird, uh, Keith Sweat, like weird R&B music. Like I still love that stuff to this day. It wasn't until I got to like junior high and high school when I started hearing like heavier music, and that was
oh, okay.
we had a cool alternative station in Tucson where I grew up. It was called KFMA, and they played a lot of like cool like they were playing a lot of like The Verve, like some of those weird bands that came and had like one big hit and went away, like Marcy Playground, The Verve. I was
Oh
really into
yeah.
that semisonic, like that weird type of alternative rock at that time. And that's when I
Okay.
started getting like really into music. I think my first CD that I bought was Third Eye Blind, the self-titled Third Eye Blind record. That was the first
Okay.
CD that I bought with my money. And so, and it just kind of kept going. I just wanted to find as much music as I could. And eventually, a couple years later, I got into like hardcore and metal and stuff like that. Some of the kids
Oh
at my
damn.
junior high showed me some music, and it just kind of went from there. So.
Okay. All right. I mean, and mentioning too, like as far as, being younger and hearing some of those things, where was Rush introduced as a drummer? I just want to ask you, as far as like Neil Peart's work, do you remember hearing that early on?
Yeah, I do. Probably from my dad because he had a lot of records at the house. He wasn't a big Rush fan. My dad likes like more like laid back music, but
Oh,
the
okay.
the classic rock station in Tucson, we used to go like when we had errands to run. I was on the weekends. I was always helping my dad do something like fix a car, or like drive to the dump or something like. So we were always growing up. We were just always driving through the desert listening to music, and he always had it on the classic rock station. So that was where I first heard
Okay.
Rush. It had a basic classic rock format like AC/DC, Zeppelin, Rush, The Who, some Rolling Stones. They kind of just all smashed it into one thing, and so you'd hear the Rolling Stones, and then next would be Rush. So, but I
Yeah.
remember hearing like Spirit of Radio was a big single even then on that
Yeah. Okay.
classic rock station. So Spirit of Radio, Tom Sawyer, The Working
Hmm.
Man, like all those songs I remember hearing as a youngster. But
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate it really until I started playing drums myself,
Yeah.
probably when I was like 12 or so. When I
Oh.
first started listening, like, wow, that's pretty intense. So
Right. Did you have siblings or anything like that too that kind of, gave different directions of like music as far as your introduction to like heavier music, or how did that come along?
no, I have a younger brother, so I think I was that for him. But
Oh,
for
okay.
me, just hanging out with uh, the troublemakers at school, hanging out with the skateboarders and the dudes that did drugs and stuff at school. They were always that was I remember like because I the alternative radio station that I was really into was always playing like Corn and stuff like that. Corn
Okay.
and Tool and Limp Bizkit, like that new metal movement was already kind of started by
Uh-huh.
the time I was paying attention. And I like that music, like no shame, like I love Corn,
Hmm.
um, Static X, all that goofy stuff.
Yeah.
4G, I love that music
Yeah,
because that was some of the
totally.
first heavy music that I heard. But then, I was walking around school with my Corn shirt, and there's some kid like, "Hey man, you got to check this out," and they started showing me like the kids I hung out with were listening to a lot of like metalcore at the time, and it's kind of funny, believe it or not, a lot of like the hardcore like metalcore stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a big scene for that, but it was a Christian metalcore scene. So like I think one of the first like heavy bands I ever heard was called Overcome. They're from Phoenix
Oh
actually,
yeah.
like a
Okay.
Christian metalcore band, and I was just like I was blown away. I'd never heard vocals like that where the guy was just like yelling the whole time, and I was like, whoa. Like as a kid I was always looking for the next most extreme thing, and that was like the step. And then from there, like a lot of the hardcore that was popular at the time was that sort of like proto metalcore. I don't think they were calling it metalcore at the time, but like I got
Hmm.
really into like 18 Visions around the time of like Best of Until the Ink Runs Out, Poison the Well.
Yeah.
Those kind of bands were really big, and that was the first time I ever heard anybody use like a double bass drum pedal, and I was just like, whoa, like what is that? And I had to like go back and then go back in time and like find Slayer and then kind of just like go back and then work my way forward. But that was my first exposure to that kind of like extreme music, and that just kind of opened the floodgates to it there.
Damn. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's sick. Like I remember too, I mean, mentioning Slayer, it was a thing where that was always like I had older brothers, and my older brothers, like the one was real a thrash head, real heavy. The other was kind of White Zombie and some of the
yeah,
more,
yeah.
like mainstream type stuff. But then I also had a sister who, was into pop and was listening to like boy bands and girl bands and shit. And, I remember like at the time, like, this stuff's kind of corny and cheesy, but looking back at it, it kind of gave a formula of like a basic, like you want a song on the radio, here's a
Yep.
pattern, here's a format of different things like that, where I kind of have gone back and, there's been certain times where like just looking for a basic layout, I know you've mentioned with like Gatecreeper kind of keeping, heavy, of course, pummeling, but then also having kind of like ABC type, structure
Sure.
with things too. So
Yeah. And the
I
thing of
think,
it is like, you remember those songs still, like
hmm
what, 25, 30 years later, some of those songs, you
hmm
still remember them. So that's the power of songwriting. You know what I mean? Like, that stuff has a place, and we certainly try to incorporate that in Gatecreeper.
yeah.
We're an extreme band, but we're on the more accessible side of extreme, I think. And I think we're all aware of that, and it's intentional. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally. I dig that. I love that. To bring us back to, scanning a local record shop or a local, music shop and choosing something solely off of the cover art. What comes to
oh
mind as
man,
far as
I used to
something
do
just
that a
pulling
lot.
you?
Yeah, I had a friend,
Okay.
my friend, my best friend in high school. We used to do that. We used to go to the local record shop. Me and Mark, every Friday, we would go to. It was called Zia Records, and it was before like Napster and SoulSeek and stuff like that was kind of still a thing, but it was still at the time where for the most part you had to go buy the record. You couldn't just stream it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. So
Mhm.
I remember at the time when I was in like late high school, I had got my extreme music taste had gotten so extreme. Like, I was listening to a lot of bands on Unique Leader, like Disgorge, US Disgorge, Decrepit Birth, like
Mm.
Beats of Flesh. Like, that's all. I just wanted brutal death metal, brutal slam, and I also liked a lot of the faster black metal. So like, I remember finding a couple Belphegor CDs at Zia, just that
Oh,
I
nice.
think I bought Lucifer and Cestus. Just, it's that picture. I think it's got the devil like with a bunch of nuns like jerking him off or something. It's pretty bad. I had to hide that one from my parents, but I remember I bought that one. I was like, whoa. And then the Legion. There was a band called the Legion from Sweden, and they had a record called Unseen to Creation. It was just like a really brutal landscape kind of album cover, kind of like a not a it wasn't a Seagrave cover, but it kind of had that vibe, like a really intricate landscape.
Mm.
Kind of like look kind of like some Immortal record covers. Um,
Okay.
I remember buying some Decapitated CDs just based off the cover back in those days. So that was
Nice.
that was cool.
Nice. And generally it was always CDs, right? Or did you ever get into like
Yeah,
tape collecting or anything like that?
not until later. At the time, like early 2000s, I don't remember tapes being a big thing then. They might have been. I kind of remember that point where I noticed that tapes were becoming popular, but at the time I was just being like practical. I just wanted to have the music
Yeah,
so bad.
right.
I wasn't so concerned with like collecting. I just wanted to have the music so bad, and I was buying CDs like every week. I would buy 2 or 3 CDs and just And in those days too, like, it sucked. Like, if you bought a CD that sucked, like, you didn't know it sucked until you listened to it. So it was
Right.
every week was a gamble. Like, I would buy 2 or 3, and hopefully I like at least one of them. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, they had a
Yeah.
cool metal section at that record store, and every week we would just comb through it and see what was new and go for it. So it was cool.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. I mean that's funny too because with you guys just being through Grand Rapids, that's where I was yesterday. They have a shop
Hmm.
called Vertigo Music, and
Vertigo.
their like selection is like they just have so much cool shit. And
Yeah.
I was at the counter literally, and I'm looking at this like cover trying to figure out what the fuck it is, and I'm like, I know what the. Have you ever heard of Cadaver?
Yeah. Yeah. I
They
just saw
had
that. I saw that.
yeah.
You just posted it. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just had it sitting on the counter. I'm like, is that for sale? He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
So, and I've never seen that before, So, I mean, that's always fun, kind of going through, and that's always been something. And like you say, I mean, not always having different things like streaming and shit. It's like, well, I mean, that's not an option. I got to find something that looks fucking cool at least, So, but then you get something that sucks, and you're like,
Yeah. It
I got to find
happens.
something to
Or
love about it.
It used to happen. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen anymore because you can go pretty much preview anything you want, but
Right.
it used to
Right.
happen quite a bit. Which, it's funny. Some of those records that I thought I hated when I was a kid, like, I'll go back and listen to them now and be like, okay, that's pretty cool. I had
Yeah.
to grow up a little bit to appreciate it because, like I said, at the time, I just wanted like
Mm-hmm.
pummeling,
Yep.
pummeling music. That's
Yep.
all I listened to, and I can't even listen to a lot of that music now. Going back, it's like, man, how did I do this? But it was a stepping stone, I guess.
Nice, nice. Now you mentioned being around 12, an interest in drums coming up. How
Mhm.
did that come as far as, like your first kit and just the inspiration from like not playing guitar or bass or something like that? How did the
Yeah.
drums come to mind?
I don't know. I know my dad was interested in drums, and he told me that he tried to play when he was in high school, but he couldn't afford the drum kit. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of one of those things that he always wanted to do. And probably like a lot of people, I think seeing Animal on the Muppets was like a moment for me. Like, oh, And I think you ask a lot of drummers, and I think a lot of drummers that's a thing for them. And then
Yeah,
my dad started
fucking
talking about
funny.
it, how he wanted to play drums when he was a kid, and we would go every once in a while. We would go to the music shop just to look at them. But I was still pretty young when I
Hmm.
got to elementary school. There was a school band program, and I was like, okay, this is my shot to learn how to play drums. But
Hmm.
it was like a concert band, so we played like really simplified versions of like orchestral pieces.
Oh, right.
Um, I guess it's kind of like running the pit in like a orchestra. So I was playing all the snare drums and the big giant bass drum and the cymbals that you clap together. But for the first couple years, my teacher, she wouldn't let me play. I wasn't allowed to play drums until I completed like a year or two of I had to play keyboard and xylophone. So I did that for 2 years, and
Mm, okay.
then she let me switch over to drums. And by the time I got to junior high, I started playing drum kit in the jazz band. And around that time, my dad had a friend that he worked with who used to be a pro drummer in Tucson, playing like nightclub gigs, like cover songs. He played like Tejano music and
Hmm.
country music and stuff like that. But he was married now, and his wife didn't like him doing that anymore. So he brought his drum set over to me one day and just gave it to me. His name was Jimmy. It
Oh,
was my dad's friend from work. So that was my first drum set. He gave me a full kit, cymbals, pedals, everything. So that was what I started on
jeez.
back in probably around 1999 or somewhere at 1998 or 1999. I think I started playing drums. So
Damn. What
a while.
kind was it?
It was a CB kit. I still have it in my parents'
Okay.
garage in Tucson. It's a
Oh,
red
sick.
sparkle CB kit. He had taken all the back hoops off, so it was very 70s type drum kit. Like all the bottom hoops were removed. The bass,
Nice.
no resonant heads on the whole thing. The bass drum had a big foam liner all the way through, and that's how I learned to play drums. So it was cool.
Damn. That is, I mean, did you have like the whole big, like symbol like right off the bat too, like the
No, he
symbol
he
spread?
gave me everything I needed. I think he had a hi hat and a crash ride cymbal. So I had a cymbal
Oh,
on my
okay.
right that did both
Hmm.
at the time, and so I had to. It wasn't after a couple months. Me and my dad went down to the music store, and he got me like a new cymbal set. I think I we tried to buy up one of those box beginner sets, a Zildjian. I think it was a Zildjian ZBT set. But when we got it
Hmm.
home, I opened it up, and it had a bunch of Paiste cymbals in it. And my dad was like, "Let's take it back. Let's take it back." And I was like, "No, the guy from Korn plays Paiste, so I'm gonna try these." And that's where it started for me with Paiste. So
Oh, really?
I've played Paiste ever since. Yeah,
Damn. No
yeah,
kidding. Yeah, dude. I mean, seeing everybody, even still today with the Rudes,
hmm
I don't know if it's something that a lot of people use in the studio, but live, I mean, those symbols are fucking everywhere.
yeah.
So, I mean,
I'll
those things are definitely.
I'm not afraid to use like a rude ride cymbal or maybe even a China in the studio, but the crashes are way too. I use a lot of like 2002s in the studio,
Oh, okay.
some thinner, medium style cymbals for the studio. Um,
Okay.
but I like the ride cymbals are great. That's my favorite kind of cymbal is a ride cymbal, and the rude cymbals have always been my favorite. So
Okay. Is that the oh my God, the Dave Lombardo? Is that like a signature, or do they have like a regular
yeah,
ride?
I have that one. It's a 22-inch like power ride, rude power ride.
Nice.
Um, that's called the Rain, like the Rain in Blood. It's called the Rain signature
Yeah, yeah,
model.
yeah.
The one I'm using right
Okay.
now on tour it's a prototype cymbal, so it's not available. You have to like order it specifically. It's a Mega Bell Rude, 22-inch Rude Mega Bell. The bell is about 8 inches. It's a big bell, but that's the one I'm using
Holy
on tour right now.
shit.
So yeah,
Damn. Wow. Now, do you are you like sponsored or endorsed by Paiste, or
no,
is that
I
something that you
wish.
just went through?
Yeah, I've
Oh,
hopefully one of these days we'll have to see how that goes, but I just don't want to
yeah.
play anything else. Like they're my favorite symbols.
That's sick.
I don't want to play any other type. I like them so
Damn.
much. I just feel like there's a lot of good companies out there that make good symbols, but I have tried most of them. The problem I always end up having is finding the balance between sound and the durability of the symbol. Like I break
Hmm.
cymbals. That's just what happens. But like some symbols I break really really fast, and it's like they're expensive. I don't want to be buying symbols all the time. I think
Yeah, you
what
ain't
it comes
lying.
down for me, Paiste makes really good symbols for loud music that are durable and they also sound like musical instruments still. I think a lot of the companies, when they get to making like a heavy rock cymbal or a metal cymbal, they're just like, well, we'll just make it thicker. And that's kind of what it sounds like. They just made a cymbal thicker, and they sound real clangy, and like they don't sound like instruments to me. They're certainly loud, but they don't have that musical characteristic that I think the Paiste still do, even when they're made for loud music, you know. So that's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
interesting.
But that's why I've
Yeah,
stuck with them through the years. I'm a very loyal customer at this point. Hopefully,
nice.
Collaborator in the future.
Right. At first, not even knowing it. Shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Sick. When you were first picking up drums, what were some like early songs that you remember like wanting to play along with, and maybe something that took you a little bit to get down playing with?
Some of the first songs that I started playing along to were like Weezer. Like the Blue album was a really popular album when I was a kid. And I remember like those are very simple but cool songs. I remember like learning almost that entire album, being able to play along with that record. And then when I was starting to try to learn some more sophisticated stuff, like that Deftones album, White Pony, was a big record when I was a kid. And I remember trying to learn some of those licks from Abe Cunningham. Who's still one of my favorite drummers.
Man, you ain't lying.
Yeah, he had some really cool. I've always felt that his playing is like simple, but he picks a spot to throw in something kind of interesting. And I had a lot of fun trying to learn some of those fills on that record. That was like a big accomplishment for me. So, and then for like metal stuff, I don't know. Like when I first got my double pedal, I was one of the bands for me that the record I heard a lot of double bass on was it was a record from that band Zao. I don't know if you remember that band.
Yeah.
I think the record was self-titled, and the drum set was like super triggered and like really overdone. But it was just like relentless double bass, and at the time I was like, wow, like this is it. This is exactly what I want to do. And I remember trying to learn a bunch of those songs from that record too. So kind of like the progression, like the simple, the intermediate, and then the more closer to what I do now. So.
Yeah. All right. Now, I mean, do you remember at a point where you realized that triggering was a thing, and you're like, okay, I don't feel so bad that like my shit doesn't sound just like this?
Well, in high school, a lot of the bands that I listened to, that was the norm. That was the wisdom. Like,
yeah,
I was a drum nerd in high school, and I was always like combing the Extreme Drummer forums. Like, I remember I belonged to a forum. I think it was just called Extreme Drummer Forum. And Derek Roddy was on there posting sometimes. Tony Laureano was on there posting. Hellhammer was on there from time to time. Frost would get on there and post. And they were all talking about, like, you know, if you want to play 300 BPM and you want it to sound consistent, you're just going to trigger. That's just what it is. So a lot of those, you know, there were varying opinions. Like some dudes would trigger their whole kit. Some dudes are only triggering the bass drum. And for a time, I messed around with that. Like I had a little drum brain when I was in high school, and I would practice with that and like learn how to manipulate that. But over time, I just kind of fell out of that extreme death metal. It was just too pummeling for me. Like I had gone all the way to that end of that spectrum and been there. You know, I looked over the edge of the cliff or whatever you say, and I wanted to go back to more accessible music that was more like, even if it was extreme or hard, I wanted music that would get caught in your head and like stay with you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
I just kind of started. I went all the way, and then I started gradually coming back and getting more into like doom metal, or like a lot of the bands I was listening to like after high school were like Black and Roll or like Death and Roll, like a little bit more songwriting focused. And I just decided I don't need the triggers. You know what I mean? Because I'm not playing. I don't really have an interest anymore in playing that fast. It's impressive. Like I love to see a drummer just absolutely going for it, but it's just not what I'm interested in doing. I don't feel there's a few drummers that can do it, but I feel for the most part, like a lot of those dudes lose power, and I want to play with power all the time. So I don't ever want to go faster than I can. If I have to sacrifice power, I don't want to go that fast. So, you know, over time, I'm trying to work up,
I like that.
work up, you know, how my threshold for playing faster with power, but it's not a major concern of mine, especially with Gatecreeper. It's very mid-tempo. You know what I mean? We play, I think 165 is our max tempo, 170. You know, I can and I can play with power. I can play powerfully, and I feel good about that. But those are my goals.
And maybe it's just, you know, as far as like personal preferences with me is, you know, the organic sound of like growing up and listening to like 70s stuff and hearing,
Sure.
individual hits and maybe something that, might have been fucked up, but they were so far into the recording that they're like, just leave it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was always something about, just the organic science. I appreciate, hearing somebody that's just absolutely insane. I appreciate the art behind that too, but I think anytime I hear, and it's something I've always appreciated about Gatecreeper and some of the other bands that are, that are doing it right now, is the organic sound, to everything, and hearing kind of the individualism with players too. So yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I love that.
Yeah, and that's what makes the record sound like a human played on
Yeah,
them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Not a,
yeah.
there's
Right.
a lot of there's a lot of good records out there now too that do that. Like, let's program the drums and make them sound as natural as possible, but whatever. It's just different strokes. It's no disrespect. Like I
Yeah,
appreciate,
totally.
and I listen to a lot of music. I listen to, there's bands that I really love that don't even have a drummer. It's just a drum machine, and that's cool too. You know what I mean? It's just different approach, different strokes. But for me, as far as sitting behind the drum set, like I wanna slam, and that's just what it comes down to. And I don't need triggers to do that. So.
Right. I wanted to dig into, as far as like early on in your playing, in a couple of different categories as far as like making or joining your first band, playing early shows and recording. I wanted to first off dig into, what was your first band? What was that like, and what do you remember about that?
It was just a band I started in junior high with some of my friends, and we learned how to play a couple Weezer songs, and that's kind of where it started. We would just play in my friend's garage or my garage and play Weezer songs or whatever. We learned like some Green Day songs or something, like whatever was on the radio at the time. And that was probably that was within a year of me getting my first drum set. Like I was already trying to make bands right off the bat. My first recording, I think, wasn't for a few years later, like maybe junior year of high school. It had only taken me like 3 or 4 years to go from Weezer to like Disgorge, and I was trying to play that kind of music, and we had a band called Sands of Time, and it was just like it sucked. It was really cool, but it sucked. But we were just trying to play that kind of music, and I was just trying to play as fast as I possibly could. And we made a shitty demo in my friend's garage. I think we used GarageBand, just like a free version of GarageBand.
Oh, okay.
In like 2001 or 2002, and that was my first. And the recording process just kind of went from there. Most of my recording experiences in Tucson. Gatecreeper and most of my bands for the past 10 or 15 years have recorded with my friend Ryan in Tucson at Home Record Studios.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I have very little studio experience out of that, but I mean, it's a professional experience. It's just like he's the guy to use in Arizona, and that's what we've always done. So all the Gatecreeper records have been done there.
Yeah, I noticed it said Home Record. I know that you guys did a split with them and a couple others, like a 4-way split too.
It's a difference. The studio and the band are not connected.
Is that not correlated? Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Home Record Studios is a studio. Yeah, it's a recording studio in Tucson, and no affiliation with
Oh, nice. I mean, either way, if you're looking for recording or another sick Arizona band, shit, there you go. Go with it. What was? Tell us about you playing your first show. What comes to mind from that memory?
I think it was like, I think I was playing like in a black metal band in high school, and that was my first show. And the main thing I remember about it is that me and my girlfriend stayed up all night making fake blood out of Caro syrup to pour all over me, and it ended up getting all over my drums, and it wasn't as cool of idea as it seemed at the time, but that's mainly what I remember about that, being real sticky and trying to play a show.
No.
But it was, it was fun. It was still cool. So.
Oh man, that's like that's the worst thing in the world, is trying to prep something for a show that you're like, man, this is going to be so cool, and then it just turns out terrible.
Well, that was the last time I ever tried to do that, but it was a good learning experience.
Yeah, I love that. Nice. And now going into, so you mentioned with Home Record Studios, that's with sorry, with Gatecreeper, that's generally what you've used. Have you gone into any other studios as far as with other bands, or was that generally like your
Yeah,
main studio?
yeah. I have a buddy, the Gatecreeper sound guy, Zach. He runs the studio in Mesa, which is basically Phoenix, called
Hmm.
Sound Signal. I've worked with him before. Um, I've worked with Ryan Butler at Arcane Digital Studios in Phoenix. He's another audio engineer in that area that does a lot of good work. So he's worked with a lot of big bands. He used to play in that band Landmine Marathon. So there's a lot of good
Oh
options.
yeah,
There's a
okay.
lot of good options in the valley in Phoenix or Arizona in general. But
Uh,
I used to play in a band with Ryan from Home Wrecker, so we kind of have that rapport, and like in a lot of ways he gets the sort of the minutia of what we're trying to do, like the little details about the guitar tone and stuff like that. So he's very much
nice.
on board with that. So it just clicked, and we've always worked with him. So we'll see.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's always an appreciated thing too when you go into a studio and somebody knows what the fuck you're trying to do.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to copy it or make an exact sound of the Slayer Rain and Blood album. It's like,
Hmm.
but if you kind of understand like where we're coming from and then just make it cool for what it's its own.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
ask for more out of a recording.
Yeah. He gets
I
it.
love
So
that.
we've worked with him consistently for almost 10 years. So.
Nice, nice. Okay. What's your pre-show ritual as far as, maybe early on up until most recently for, you're going out to play a show. What
Hmm.
what goes into, do you do some stretching? Do you do some practicing behind the scenes? What do you have as far as that?
When I was younger, I used to just kind of go for it, and then um, I would just get up there and play. And then in my 20s, I started trying to get more serious about playing. So I would like mess around on the practice pad or do a little bit of stretching, and that was what I did for years until we started touring with Gatecreeper. And even though the music is a lot simpler than some of the other bands I played in, like the physical demands are just so much. At least I feel it's a lot more physically demanding than some of the other bands I've been in. It's the tempo, you know, I kind of got it in my head. I made my own rule that I need to hit as hard as I can every hit because the tempo allows it. You know what I mean? That it's not. I'm not playing a million notes, so I can play every note as loud as I possibly can. And no, that's just
Mhm.
something that I made up. I don't know where that rule came from, but that's what I've tried to do with Kicker the whole
Yeah, I
time. Like
like that.
I
Okay.
started finding that I needed to be more serious about my warm up routine, and like I would stretch, hit the practice pad. Um, I started bringing the bass drum warm up pads, the Evans Real Feel pad, so I can start warming up my feet as well as my hands. And I did that for a couple years,
Oh,
and
wow.
and but this tour something's a little. I don't know if it was like the time that we took off or everybody's just kind of feeling a little different. Like I feel older than I did the last tour we did was 2019, and my body's just working differently now. So when we started this tour, I was doing this stuff that I always did, hitting the doing spending an hour on the pads before the set, and it just wasn't working. Like I was feeling kind of tired and a little exhausted, and I had to change something. So what I've started doing now, um, a lot of these dates on this tour are like early load-ins. With Knock Loose, we'll have like 2 o'clock load-in, so we'll get there. I'll set up the kit, get ready for sound check, and in the time between waiting for Knock Loose to sound check and when we're sound checking, I'll set up my pads early, just practice my rudiments, do my foot stuff, like do my exercises, and then I'll rest until showtime. I'll stretch a little bit before we get up on stage, and then just go for it. But moving too much right before the set, I find is taking energy out of the energy that I could use during the set, which wasn't always the case when
Sure.
I was younger, but just, things are different now and I got to find a way
Things
to adjust.
change.
So yeah, they do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right.
So I'm doing
Nice.
my practice earlier in the day, resting, and then just stretching before the set. So that seems to be
Okay.
working for me right now.
Sweet. I love that. All right. With the start of the band, bringing us back, roughly around like 2013. What are memories as far as early practices with Gatecreeper and, maybe songs or riffs
Mhm.
that became the foundation of what the sonic sound was for the band?
Yeah, initially it was me and Chase, and we wrote a couple songs together, just practicing at like. I remember we practiced in his living room one time. I had a practice space in Tucson, but we were living in different cities at the time. He was living in
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix, and I was living in Tucson, so we would travel back and forth. I was living with Eric, the Dark Cowboy. You may know him as. He was my roommate at the time, and after like probably after only a couple of weeks of me and Chase talking about making this band, we asked him to be in it too, and so we just started practicing mostly in Tucson at my practice space in Tucson downtown.
Okay.
And we were just kind of writing, like, I remember at the time, um, I was listening to a lot of some of the newer bands that were trying to do like an old school sound. Like, I remember we were both really into that band Cleric at the time, Cleric from Texas,
Hmm.
Vastum. We were listening to a lot of Vastum. I was listening to some weird like Black Death stuff, like that band Necrovation. I think they're from Finland.
Oh yeah.
I was really into
Okay.
that. Just like bands that were kind of like raw, like a little bit more raw with their death metal sound. Like I was just kind of done with overproduced death metal at that time. I just wanted to hear something that was a little bit more like vicious and
Mm-hmm.
raw. Black Breath was obviously a big band that kind of like,
Yes.
I feel like that was kind of the band that opened the gates for us and then kind of just got out of the way. Like I think they're a great band, but I don't see them given a lot of credit um, for what
Yeah. Totally.
they did. You know what I mean? So I very much feel like we followed in their footsteps and then kind of just then they just went away. But you know, that was a big band for us. But we were also listening to a lot at the time. I think the band started because I saw Chase wearing a Dismember shirt. I think I met him at
Ooh.
I don't remember. It was one of the big package tours. That might have been like a Summer Slaughter tour or something. It was Napalm Death and I don't remember. Napalm Death was the headliner, but it was a show in Tucson, and he came down to the
Mm-hmm.
show with somebody that I knew from Phoenix, and he introduced me like, "This is Chase. This is my friend Chase." And he was wearing a Dismember Massive Killing Capacity shirt, and we started. That was for whatever reason at that
Oh,
time.
sick.
I was really, really into that record, and we started talking about it, and that's kind of the foundations of the band. It just kind of went from there. So.
Sweet. Nice. With so kind of fast forwarding a little bit as far as, the band having some of the six splits that you guys have had with
Hmm.
like Takeover and Destroy, and
Hmm.
you got Homewrecker, Outer Heaven, Iron Reagan. If you guys could do a split for 2022 and you could choose the band or bands, who would be someone that you would want to do a split with?
Man,
And if you say
uh,
Black Breath, I love that answer too.
that would be cool. I don't know what those guys' plans are for the future. You know, the bass player passed away a couple years ago, and I know they had been kind
Yeah,
of
that's
quiet for a
right. I
time.
forgot about
So I
them.
don't know what those guys are up to. That would be sweet. That would be a dream.
Hmm.
Who did I say? Oh, that's a tough one. I think it
If
might be
something
cool
comes,
to do like,
go ahead.
um, like if we could get, I like a lot of old Finnish bands like Sentence, who started out being
Oh
death metal
yeah.
bands and became like sad dad rock bands over time, like more, you know what I mean? I think it would be cool
Yeah.
to do a split with a band like that. Um, uh, Sentence, like if they wanted to write some like death metal music, that would be cool. There's a lot of cool bands that we played shows with and toured in the past. Um, we just did a few dates with Bobophilic to at the beginning of this tour. That would be a really cool split. Like, there's a lot of good bands out there doing a lot of cool stuff. If maybe I don't have a definite answer for you, but if we did a split, I would like to do it with a band that's not so established. Like, I think that's what a split is
Yeah.
about. Like,
Okay.
to introduce a
Hmm.
band to another more established band's audience, or to help. At this point, like, we don't really write. We're not writing like extra songs for splits or whatever,
Right.
or EPs. Like, we want to make records.
Hmm.
But if we did take the time, I think I would want to do it for like a band on the way up, like a band coming up. You know what I mean? That would be that would be the goal. But I'd have to
Yeah.
think about it.
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the last band that you mentioned? Boba something?
Phobophilic.
Phobophilic? Okay. I
Phobophilic.
haven't.
They're from Fargo. We did 4 or 5 dates with them
Whoa.
on on the way to meet the Knock Loose tour package. Um,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're really good band, really nice guys, really really focused and tight band. So it was cool.
Sweet. I'll have to check that out. Okay.
Yeah,
I've never heard that name before. So
yeah,
yeah,
check them
sweet.
out. They're really cool.
I mean, introduction right there. Sick. So we, bringing us to most recently with an unexpected reality, drop in January of this year. Bring us, what were the early memories as far as maybe some riffs that you heard of this bad boy, or, kind of the early starts that you were hearing for writing this EP?
We we had tossed the idea around even before pandemic. Like I remember me and Chase talking about it for the first time in 2019 at the end of our tour with Exhumed. Our last show that we played before lockdown was Decibel Metal and Beer Fest
Oh, yeah.
in we played at the Observatory. I can't remember what city that's in. It's in
Hmm.
California. So we were there, and he was talking about what we were gonna do next. At the time, we had a bunch of tours planned. We had our next couple of years at least booked, but we were taught he had mentioned to me the idea that he wanted to do a split, like not a split, but like a record that had a bunch of fast songs and a slow song on the other side. And we were just talking about some of the records. Like for me, I start. He probably mentioned it too, but I was initially already thinking about, like, I like a lot of that, like Napalm Death, Harmony Corruption, on for the next couple of records, where they're sort of like flirting with death metal a little bit, but it's still kind of, it's like primitive death metal, you know what I mean, with grindy elements. Um, just doing stuff like that. And we've always had a rule. I don't know. It's another abstract rule that we have in Gatecreeper. But when we started it, I was just kind of over blast beats at the time, and I was like, I don't want to be doing any blast beats in this band. And that's kind of been. We never really talked about it that much, but it just kind of got internalized, and we've never done a lot of blast beats in Gatecreeper. But
Oh,
we just
okay.
we decided to, for this record, to make it kind of like, we'll take that rule off. And I'm not playing anything impressive, like no impressive blast beats, just very slow. Like that was kind of my vibe for this record, was trying to do like some some more primitive death metal death grind
Hmm.
type stuff. You know what I mean? Nothing super technical. And of
Sure.
course, it's Gatecreeper, so it's very riff focused. The riffs come first. It's about the catchy songs, even if they're 30 seconds. Like we still want the songs to be catchy, earworms. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
totally.
they do a lot of, like, Eric and Chase will do a lot of prep work together, pre-production and stuff like that. So they'll get together and write songs, and a lot of the times, most of the time, by the time I hear the tracks, they're already pretty well developed. So they'll send me the tracks over. This is the riffs. There's not a lot of, like, it's like an assembly line. Like they send it to me, and then it just kind of goes down the line, and there's not a lot of like improvisation or like jamming out. It's just kind of like, I don't know what people will think about that, but that's just how it goes. It's very intentional. Like every step of the process is
Hmm.
is kind of. So by the time I was hearing the demos for the songs, they were almost completely written. Like I think a few parts got changed before we went into the studio, but by the time I got the tracks, like they were pretty solidly written. You know what I mean? And it was just up to
Yeah.
me to figure out drums and go from there. So
I mean, it might sound funny, but I feel like it's more common than what I even really realized through doing these interviews and talking with people about writing processes and different things. And even in my band where, I get a demo of something and it's already kind of like a basic, like nothing overly crazy drum beat to like what
mhm.
the, pattern of the song is. And I mean, it takes away a lot of the, like going and sitting in a room for all day long for
Sure,
X amount of days or whatever. Which I mean that's fun too. But if you have different things where it's like, hey, I just had this idea. What do you think of this? And I'm sure you kind of you fall in the situation too where you have different little things as far as like your taste on maybe like a fill or something kind of like as a introduction into like a verse or something like that might be a little bit different. But
sure.
that is something too that I always thought that was a little strange. I always thought that was maybe just bands that I was falling into where people are like, no, I'm just going to write this whole thing and, let's kind of work with it there. But I had heard you mention that in an interview too. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I didn't realize that, you know, a lot of that process, you know, or a lot of people have, you know, kind of similar processes too.
Yeah, it's very streamlined, and it's just, well, I think one of the issues that we come up with is that not all of us live in the same city. So being able
Yeah,
to
same
work,
here. Yep.
exchange ideas remotely, it helps a lot. And it just kind of, you know, imagine we had to drive 2 hours. I mean, I know that's not a lot, but like driving 2 hours a couple times a week to write a record like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's a hardship for some of us who have jobs or whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
We can just send ideas back and forth. It just goes easier that way, and it's just like I said, it's very much like an assembly line. Like by the time I get
Mm.
to it, it's just drums. So
Yeah.
so
Okay. I mean, you know, technology sucks in some ways, but I'll
mm,
say thumbs up there for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Saving a little time. What can you tell us about the cover art? You know, I mean, Gatecreeper, you know, had lots of, you know, blacks and grays and different things as far as you know, maybe some monotones on things, and this bad
Mm-hmm.
boy comes out and just beats the shit out of you visually. What can you tell us about when you first saw the cover art for this?
Chase, and man, I'm blanking on the artist's name right now too. I'm sorry, forgive me. Um, Chase had taken care of that. He's pretty meticulous about the cover art, and so like you said, there's a
Mm.
lot of, I feel like there's a lot of themes. Um, we tend to favor that sort of like classic death metal or metal record with like a sort of landscape, like a bigger picture with a lot going on, as opposed to like a focal point, like a
Mm-hmm.
simple picture with a focal point. Like we always have a lot of that stuff going on. I was surprised to see. I was expecting something a little bit more subdued. I think I think initially Chase told me that it was going to be a black and white cover, and kind of like our Sweltering Madness one.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was expecting something more like that. But then when I saw all the colors and everything, I thought it was really cool. I like I like it a lot. I think it's funny. It's we've worked with a different artist for each like full length or whatever, each record. Um, so it's like a different style, but it's very much like in line with the aesthetic that we've been able to capture so far. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit like busy, a lot of busy. You see that on Sonoran Deprivation, and then
Yeah. Right.
on Deserted, and now with An Unexpected Reality. There's just a lot going on, and we like that. I mean, it kind of harkens back to some of those older death metal records, that those like
Yeah.
brutal landscape records. You know, like we just like that stuff. It's goofy and it's weird, and but that's what we've always liked. All our favorite records look like that. You know what I mean? So that's what we go with. And there's still a lot of cool bands
Right.
that still do that. Like Jabalba,
Mm-hmm.
I like they seem to work with Seagrave for every record, but
Oh man,
I love their record covers. They're sweet, you know.
so
It's
sick. Yeah, I
it's always
totally
got
agree.
the pyramid, the Aztec pyramid or something, like a little nod to what they're doing. And like I like bands
Mm-hmm.
that have like a, maybe not a theme, but like in a lot of ways it carries over into our music too. Like you know what to expect with Gatecreeper. Like even with
Mm-hmm.
this Unexpected Reality, it was a little bit different, or a lot different, but it doesn't sound, it's not a complete departure in my opinion. Like it still
Right.
sounds like us, and I still feel very like, I didn't feel in the studio recording or writing these songs, I didn't feel like we were like really like flipping the script. It was just kind of like a different avenue for us to explore in our, while still doing what we do, you know what I mean? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the
totally.
same with the album covers, like it just kind of goes like that. Like we'll work with a different artist, it looks a little different, but it's very much us. It's very much in line with what we do. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was thinking for some reason that it was at least like the same artist who had done the last couple. So this was somebody different then. I had
yeah,
this written down, and I can't believe I don't have it in my fucking notes. But
I'll give credit. I feel really bad. I just can't. I'm blanking on the artist's name
yeah,
right now.
I'll tag it in the edited video.
Yeah,
It'll be fine. We'll
yeah,
just sit here and act like we've already said it, and
yeah.
it'll be right at the bottom.
Fair enough.
So one thing I want to mention. So with the colors and the vibrancy, the first thing that kind of came when I first heard the first. I'm trying to think of what the first track would have been that I heard of it, but was energy. You know, it was
Hmm.
just like it kind of, you know. I listened to it for the first time, and then the song "Sick of Being Sober" comes on, and I'm just
Hmm.
like, holy shit. You know, I mean, it was almost kind of pushing into, in the beginning there, a little bit more of like a thrashy, you
Hmm.
know, in your face energy to it.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you mentioned as far as like the writing process and everything with that, but what can you tell us about maybe earlier times playing that track, or, you know, the first times talking with Chase about the lyrics or different things as far as with that song?
Well, yeah, that song's got like a big, like a D beat kind of feel, like a slow D beat kind of feel. A lot of bands I was playing in before Gatecreeper were I was doing like a lot of D beat hardcore bands, so I was playing in a band a lot faster, but that was kind of like
Hmm.
something that's not entirely outside of my comfort zone to do with D
Sure.
beats. And I think in general with an unexpected reality, we took a lot of conventional extreme metal formats and just kind of slowed them down a little bit. Like the blast beats, there's blast beats on the record, but they're like super slow.
Hmm.
They're blast beats that I can play like as hard as I can for,
Right.
you know what I mean, for the time allotted. The same with the D beats. Like I can play those D beats really, really hard for 15 seconds, you know what I mean? 15, 30 seconds. So when Chase started talking to me about it, I know, I feel like I remember specifically that he's like, yeah, we're going to do some D beats on this record. And Chase and Eric are both really adept at programming drums for demos. So a
Hmm.
lot of times I'll get a demo with almost like a fully fleshed out concept on guitar and their ideas for drums. And mostly what I do, like they've gotten pretty good at just programming how I would play. So a lot of times I'll get their demos and be like, yeah, I would probably do that too. Mostly what I mostly what I try to do is try to just like spice up the fills a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Or if I see a chance to like just make something a little bit more interesting, I just try to make it sound like more like how a drummer would play it as opposed to how a guitar player would program a drum track for their
Hmm.
track. But structurally, for the most part, like we work pretty well together like that. Like I'll find myself agreeing most of the time with with their ideas, and I just try to find the spots to make it a little bit more interesting. Usually just with fills, or maybe I'll hit a different cymbal or something, or find
Yeah,
an accent
totally.
on the cymbal. But with Gatecreeper, I try to keep in mind that sort of tradition of playing for the song. You know, like it's not about, especially live. Like there's a lot of drummers that will get up there and play a million notes, and like that's really impressive. But live for us, people respond to the energy, like you were saying, the energy. Like people want to see me sweating and spitting and like losing my mind and having a really tough time, or looking like I'm having a really tough time up there. Like they respond to that. So even if the music's not incredibly technical or impressive from a drumming standpoint, like the energy is what sells people on it and brings people in. Like we're a very powerful band. Like we have a lot of confidence as a band on stage together. Um, like, and we play with a lot of really like virtuoso type bands. You know what I mean? Like we've toured with Dying Fetus.
Hmm.
Um, we've toured with Incantation. Some of these bands that are, have kind of made their game being a little bit more technical. And like I don't, we're certainly doing a different thing, but I don't feel intimidated by playing with those bands, and I don't think any of the guys in Gatecreeper do. We're very confident, and we're pretty, we know what we're doing, and we get up on stage and do just that. And I think
Yeah.
you can hear that on the record too. Like it's the sort of confidence in the simplicity of it. It's just about force, like bulldozing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's just what we're gonna do. We're not there to do anything like intricate or whatever. It's just very simple and effective, and nah,
I love
get
it.
out of the yeah. That's how it
Yeah.
works. So
Oh yeah. With one thing I wanted to touch on too, mention with like the whole demo process and kind of getting that stuff too. I don't know if you've kind of fallen into this, but every once in a while there'll be a time where it might be a fill or it might be a part that, that they've written and played it over and you listen to it. It's like, I would have never played this, but let's fucking go off and try this. I mean, I don't know
yeah,
if you've fallen into that, but there's been certain times where shit's like, I'm going to change this a little bit. But there's other times where it's like, I wouldn't have probably played this if we were just, jamming at it or whatever. But this is a little out of my realm, and let's try it and see what happens.
sometimes that'll happen. Like a lot of things, I have to check myself too. Like sometimes I'll sit down and hear something and be like, I don't know if I can play that, or I don't know if I have to ask myself, do I not want to play this, or am I
Mm,
unable to play this? And there have been times when they'll make a drum part that's just like it's not how I would do it, and it feels weird, it feels awkward, and yeah, my instinct will be like maybe I should play something, maybe I should do something what I would do, more like what I would do. But also there have been a few instances where I've decided to like challenge myself and be like, okay, maybe I can just try to figure this out and do it this way. And that's just, I like that because it's another way to like expand my toolbox of things that feel comfortable to me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Instead of just always, there's already like not a lot of variety in Gatecreeper. Like we stick with what works. Like we know what works and that's what we're going to do. So I'm not trying to like, we're not going to make a progressive record or anything next, but like, it is nice to be able to grow a little bit, you know, try to add a new texture or like a new skill set or whatever
Sure.
to every record. You know, I think most artists want to do that from record to record, progress a little bit. So I have to do that. When I come up on a situation like that, I have to check myself and say, do I really not want to play this, or am I just unwilling to learn how to do it? And so that's been my process recently. But
Hell yeah. Okay. With with this EP, then what all did you use as far as in the studio? You know, from your setup as far as your drums. You mentioned the Paiste. Did you use the 2002s then?
yeah, I think I used a couple medium. The model is just called medium.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
I had an 18-inch medium and I think a 17-inch medium
The
for the crash
crashes.
cymbals.
Okay.
I used a 2002 Novo China 20-inch, and I used an old, it's a Paiste Dimensions Power Ride 20-inch, which is a
Whoa.
little bit smaller than I use live. I usually use a 22-inch ride cymbal live, but
Mm-hmm.
I tend to find in the studio, with the exception of the China cymbal, that smaller cymbals work better. They're a little bit more controlled, so the
Mm-hmm.
engineer doesn't have as tough a time making them sound good. So it's still a very powerful ride, though. It's relatively thick and it gets a good ping. And I don't like to crash on my ride. I don't do any crashing on my ride cymbal. I have a big crash right above the ride to do that. So that's kind of how I play.
Okay.
And I favor a very thick ride that just gets a big. We call it a ding ding. You know, in Gatecreeper, well, okay, we need a ding ding beat right here. You know, ding 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 ding. So I like a thick heavy ride cymbal that holds up to that. For hi-hats, I think I just used, again, 2002s. So it was like a 2002 setup with the exception of the ride cymbal, which was a old discontinued Paiste model from the late 90s, I think. It was my first professional cymbal that I ever bought
Oh,
with my
dang.
own money, and I used
Okay.
that for most of my studio recording. So
Nice. Okay. What about drums? Did you have the Tama kit then?
yeah, it was the Tama kit. It was I just played it as a single bass drum. It's a Tama Rockstar DX. I think it's from
Okay.
1993. They
Mm-hmm.
are, it's a composite shell. I don't remember exactly what the composite is. It's not like maple or birch. It's a beginner's drum set. It's a entry level kit from the early 90s, but it's just the entry level kits from that time are a lot more like viable, I guess you
Yeah.
would say. A lot of the
Yeah.
entry level
Sure.
kits now are just basically toys, but back then
Mm-hmm.
they were still making some good stuff. So that's the one that I use on the road, and I used it in the studio. It's big dimensions. The toms are 12 by 11 and 13 by 12, so the rack toms are just gigantic.
Jesus.
And the floor tom is standard 16 by 16. Bass drum is 22 by 16, and I use the Tama Metalworks snare. I can't remember exactly which model. It's not. I got
Okay.
it at Guitar Center for like $199, so it's not. It's not. I'm very utilitarian in my gear. Like
Yeah.
I
Keep it
love
practical.
Tama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Tama for that. It's just well built stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I take it on the road and don't worry about it getting smashed up or whatever. So that's cool.
Sure. Nice, nice. What's a song that you guys never play that you know if you had the opportunity for this tour to slap on that set list, what you could put on?
There's a couple. From Sonoran Deprivation, one of my favorite songs is called "Lost Forever."
Oh
It's kind
yeah,
of a deep cut. It's got more of like a, I don't know. To me, it sounds like a Cannibal Corpse style song, but it's got
yes.
some a little bit more intricate double bass, not intricate, but a little bit quicker double bass work than I usually do.
Uh-huh.
I like that song a lot. There's a song from our Sweltering Madness EP. The B side to that song is "Mastery of Power," which is one of my favorite Gatecreeper songs that we never play. From Unexpected Reality, I like that song Super Spreader a lot, which we may
Oh
play.
yeah.
I don't think there's any reason we don't play that song. I just think we play 3 songs from the new record on this tour, and there's just not that one. I don't know why we
Oh,
didn't choose it,
sweet.
but maybe in the
Okay.
future. That one's got that kind of like galloping double bass shuffle that I
Yeah.
like a lot. So
Nice.
maybe
Nice.
in the future we'll get that one in.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's awesome. I mean, this is wrapping up. You know, we're just at an hour here. I don't want to keep you too long here and have you, with other people staring at you or anything.
No worries.
Bothering you there. If this is your opportunity though, if you want to let everybody know, maybe some of the dates that you have coming up, some things that's up with Gatecreeper. I do have one finale though, but this is your opportunity, man.
Oh no, we're on this tour for like another month. I think it's like another 4 weeks.
Oh wow. Okay.
We're gonna be in New York and Massachusetts in the next couple days. We have another show in Philadelphia tonight. We will get over to Texas, I believe, and some parts of the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of dates in California. So I'll put, just check the tour flyer. I'm really bad at, most of the days I don't even know where I am or what day it is, but
Yeah.
we'll be out there. We're just going to be on tour for a while and for the
Sweet.
foreseeable future. We signed to Nuclear Blast late last year. So
Mm-hmm.
at some point we'll have a new record. We're not really prioritizing that right now because we already have Deserted and Unexpected Reality that we're just now getting the chance to tour on. So
Yeah,
I think we
totally.
want to do that for a little bit, but maybe by the end of next year we'll be writing new music. Who knows?
Damn.
Yeah, we're just going to be on tour forever. So come see us in the States and Europe, hopefully next year. And depending on the state of the world, maybe other places, but we'll be out there. So look for
Damn.
us. And don't
That.
miss us next time. We're in Michigan.
Yeah, holy fuck. You ain't lying. Dear Lord. 2 days in a row, I missed both of them. I'm
Yeah.
like, how the fuck does this happen? I mean, unfortunately, I was out of town too. So, like,
Yeah.
had
No
I
worries.
known, I would have, tried and made something happen. But I was like, boy, oh boy, how embarrassing.
No worries.
With this finale, I want to ask you, Gatecreeper has had a couple of burgers named after you guys, all right? So if you have the opportunity where it was a personal favorite food of yours, what would it be, and what Gatecreeper song would you want it named after?
Like a signature food item?
Like a signature food item, yep, your choice.
Man.
Make it a little ridiculous, end it off,
Give me a minute to come up with a good answer.
You did mention burritos, shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Me and Eric always talk about this because we're a big fan of that place, Grill 'Em All in Los Angeles. We were before we worked with them, and I remember when Chase jokes about it when they told us that we were going to have a signature burger. Like me and Eric were more excited than we were when we found out we were going to sign to Relapse Records. Like that was a big moment for us. But having a signature burger was just like, this is it, man. Like we've made it. I think it would probably be a burger. Like we love burgers. I love burgers.
Okay.
I think I would make mine with maybe we could call it like From the Ashes or something. The From the Ashes burger.
Ooh.
We could have
Okay.
like some
All right.
slightly burned bacon, some slightly crisp charred bacon with maybe like chorizo and eggs on top, and I would put some spinach on there to get your greens, to get your veggies, and maybe some like cotija cheese, some of the crumbly white cheese on there, and like maybe like some kind of like spicy mayonnaise or aioli sauce on there. I think that would be good. That would be
nothing better, I mean, and that's one thing I've always loved seeing, like Kuma's Corner and Grill 'Em All and everything, seeing all these spots, it's like, I've never been out to California, but I intend on trying that at some point, and seeing that too. So now you made everybody hungry, and we're all going to have to go and grab a burger somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Thank you very, very much. Honestly,
thanks for having me, man.
Like I mentioned, for your time today, this has been awesome, and I appreciate it. And I will not be missing the next time that you're local here, my man. So
yeah, I'll remind you. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. It's good to see you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You take care and stay healthy and stay safe.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you soon. Bye.
See you.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.